I might ditch the capo. Try to do the Jimmy Vaughn, but it's kind of messing with me. Can you guys hear everything okay? Back up a bit. Alright. Woo! Okay. Gotta turn that guy off. How are you guys doing this morning? I ran it, like the first thing I ran across was this Jimmy Vaughn style swinging shuffle blues track in F. So I thought, hey, maybe I'll play a little Jimmy Vaughn style. But apparently I suck at that. Hey Roger, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. I'm still on this Butternote Music channel for their backing tracks. I really like his blues backing tracks. On the other hand, I'm going to play a little bit of one of mine just to... where'd it go? Jump Blues in A. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about major and minor pentatonic stuff, kind of the first approach to playing the changes in a blues that I ever learned. But I'm gonna jam just a little bit more, just for people to get there. Can you guys hear everything okay? Is the volume all right? You guys can hear the backing track and everything? Okay, here we go. Wrong key. Thinking about the Jimmy Vaughn thing in F. That was a mistake. Jim. No problem, Roger. Talk to you later on. Woo! Okay, my backing track just does not want to work today. We're off to a weird start. How are you guys doing today? I'm going to... Don't read the coffee. I'm not entirely certain what's going on. My internet connection is actually quite good today. Supposedly have really good streaming speed. Before I get started, I'm just going to put it out there. You guys have any questions or anything like that? Make sure you type them up and put them in the deal. I'm going to be writing some stuff out for you, and we're going to kind of talk about the easiest way to kind of break out of that first pentatonic blues pattern thing that we all end up starting off with. You know, a lot of time. Let's see if this thing will work. So a lot of us learn just that first pentatonic scale. Right? Which is not a bad thing. But the thing is that it gets kind of constricting for a while. You know, and then usually the next step that we take is that we actually can move up and down in the same scale. We've talked about that. You know, a lot of times we take the parts of the fretboard for blues, and I'll refer to them by the names of the players that I most closely associate those sounds with. Like there's the B.B. King box. Right? And then I like, you know, Albert King actually is a little bit more of the minor thing for me. All right, but then also in the same B.B. King box, you could do the same thing, but with really like two-step bends and things like that. Right? So I've usually got a shorthand way of describing things that kind of gets the point across because you guys are familiar with these players. So the first thing that we usually end up learning is kind of that after the pentatonic scale is that Albert King box right there, right? And that's, so let me write some stuff out on our virtual board here. Oops. So the first one is, here is our root pattern for the A that we're going to be dealing with. All right, and this goes back to the caged root lessons. I'll put links to a lot of these things that I'm referring to in the description below once we're over with this. All right, so a typical minor pentatonic scale has the minor third, minor third, fourth, fifth, minor seven. If you're new to the channel, I try and refer to all of these notes not just as the dots where you put your fingers, but by what their relationship is to the root, the interval or scale tone, scale degree. So that's what these numbers are. All right. I'm gonna back. Hey Jim, you said the little vibrato thing that you were doing. I'm kind of curious what that might be. If you could describe it a little bit more, I'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so that was that first scale. That's kind of the home pattern that we usually start in. All right, and then yeah, I'm gonna put the blues note in the flat 5. This guy here. That really ends up being one of the, you know, when we talk about a blues scale, that's the flat 5. Right, so that's yet another sound. Right, that's another one of the sounds that we have going here. But then if we want to, we can extend, I'll do this in red here. We can put the 5 here. There's root. There's the 4. And then I'm just going to circle these guys here. Right? And those are actually that kind of the first extension of this pattern here for the minor pentatonic. right? We get a lot of these, like here's the root, right? And you can bend the 4 up a whole step because then you got the 5 up here. Oops, losing my pick. That's an Albert King thing that you hear in a zillion Stevie Ray Vaughan solos, where he goes minor 3rd, root, 5, and the 7. All right. A lot of times guys will play like a root 3rd. Right, doing a little half step bends. All right, but it's a great little box pattern. But then you also find that, you know, this minor 7 root, minor 3rd 4, it's down here an octave. So you got minor 7 root, minor 3rd 4. And then even an octave lower, and I'll write these guys in here. There's a minor 7, there's your root, minor 3, and 4. And it's important to keep track of these boxes for when we move into the major pentatonic for reasons that you're going to see pretty soon. Right? So I can take a phrase, I know it there, I know it there, and I know it there. Right? And if I add the 5 to that, then that becomes the what we call the 2-3 pattern, where you've got 2 notes on one string and then 3 on the other. Minor 7 root, minor 3 4 5, minor 7 root, minor 3 4 5, minor 7 root, minor 3 4 5. Right? And what that does, that gives us kind of a lateral movement through those positions. All right. This is going to help us visualize later, because the major pentatonic stuff that we're gonna do is going to be kind of the minor stuff, but kind of from a different angle. So you'll kind of see in a minute, right? So that's one of the first ways of organizing these sounds, and this is all still the minor thing. So if I was to put this guy, oops, my iPhone notifications are messing with me. And here in A. Hopefully what you guys saw was that I could take an idea in one octave and then move it into one of the other octaves and kind of complete the phrase. If you understand what these notes are, they all have distinct identities based on these numbers that I'm telling you, the minor 7 root, minor 3 4, that kind of thing, then it becomes real easy for you to see where these ideas replicate all over the fretboard and how you can actually use this information to create longer phrases that are actually better developed. Right. So play around with that idea. But the next thing is, let's talk about major pentatonic for a second. So the thing to remember is when we talk about major and minor, without getting too much into the music theory part of it, is that every major key shares the same notes with the minor key. They're what we call modes of each other, or they're also relative scales. Now, a lot of you guys have probably seen this idea where they say, hey, if you want to play major pentatonic, just take your minor pentatonic and move it down 3 frets. Right, and then there's your major pentatonic in that key. And that's kind of a good shorthand. We're going to talk about that 3 fret distance thing in a little bit. First, I'm going to check my tuning. I was going to play one guitar and then tried my McFeely with the capo, and it just didn't get the Jimmy Vaughn thing, and then I tried this and it's not in tune. So I apologize. I'll be tuning a couple times. All right. So what you find is that the key of A major pentatonic is also the same as F sharp. All right. What that comes down to is a lot of these phrases or ideas that we play in the minor can actually be moved into the major pentatonic, and that'll help us also with this idea that, like, when I was saying, hey, we could take a lick in one octave and then repeat it, and complete it in another place. You can also do that with the major stuff too. So I started in the major pentatonic sound, and then I moved up into the minor. So let me write out some of the major pentatonic stuff for you here. Let's move this guy up. So if we were to look at this, we're going to have some of the, oops, we'll do this in blue here. A root here. So in the major pentatonic, like literally, we'll have the same shape. As the minor pentatonic. It's just that the note that we start on for the root is starting on the pinky, in this case. Right. Now it's important that you understand where the roots are within this, as opposed to just saying, hey, I'm going to move the shape physically down here. Because if you play the same lick, you know, there's an A minor pentatonic idea. If you play the same lick here, yeah, because you're resolving the same way, you're really in the key of F sharp minor. Right? You have to treat the roots, hey, Robert, good morning, for what they are, right? So in this right here, if we want to play an A major, we have to realize that the roots are this G pattern, which you see here in this root, 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 and then you have to resolve your phrases accordingly. All right, there's the root there, as opposed to that F sharp, right? So if it's the minor pentatonic, these are the roots. If it's the major pentatonic, these are the roots, right? And knowing where the chord tones are, the root, third, and fifth become very helpful for making this sound like a major pentatonic. That's the one thing to keep in mind. Checking my tuning again. So our weather here in Southern California, we've gotten so used to being so hot all the time that something that all of you guys from all the rest of the parts of the country don't think is very cold kind of freaks us out, like when it gets down into the 30s at night. And right now it's probably in the high 50s. But my guitars are not handling the weather going back and forth very well, so I do apologize for the tuning issues. Last week was kind of the same way. All right, so I have a phrase that kind of fits in this Albert King idea, right? And as long as I resolve that phrase to that root right there, it's major, right? And then as long as I resolve it to the root in the minor pentatonic, the higher one, then you're in better shape. So let me just make sure I label this. Minor pentatonic. And this guy over here is going to be major pentatonic. Okay, I'm going to pause just for a second and make sure that you guys are understanding me. Real quick. Excellent. Good to see you. Not so good about avalanche danger. Not sure where your place is going to be. But yeah, let me know about the... you can let me know later on. You don't have to let me know while we're live here. Okay, I'm going to put the backing track on if you guys want to... it'll give you kind of a little bit of a pause to ask about questions. I'll play some of these ideas. All right. If you guys want the backing track that I am playing right now... I'll put this in here too, so y'all can play along here. This is the new Jump Blues one that I did a few weeks ago. Jump Blues in A. And I'll put this guy in the stream here. Did it post? There it is. Okay. So I'm going to play and let you guys... You go to the 4 chord. So this brings us to the question, why do we change major and minor sounds? And part of it, I'm going to get rid of this thing here. And what it comes down to is that you have changes where, because typically if we were playing in a regular key, like if we're playing in the key of A major, all the chords in that key would work with the scale. But because in a blues, we're dealing with every chord basically being a dominant seventh chord sound, some notes don't work with certain scales. So if I was to, let's do this here, right? So an A7 chord, 3. These are the notes in an A7 chord. All right. And then in red, I'm going to put the notes, I'm just going to circle where the notes in an A minor pentatonic scale is. And you're going to see that certain things don't fit exactly. Whoops. Oh, it would help if I actually showed you guys what I was doing here. All right, so the blue is the pentatonic. Or the blue is the chord tones. All right, and then the red, that's the minor pentatonic. Now, you can play minor pentatonic over that whole thing, and it'll mostly work, all right? Because there's a thing in blues that if you're, the one note that is not in the minor pentatonic that is in the A7 chord is this third right here. This guy. All right. But in blues, it's kind of cool if you play that minor third against the major third, and then maybe give it a little bit of a tweak, so you're kind of edging towards it being in tune. All right, and then that you can fit the whole minor pentatonic. So the minor pentatonic largely works over that chord because it's got 3 out of the 4 notes of the scale, or of the arpeggio. All right, and the one note you can kind of fake, and it kind of works. That spot between the minor third and the major third is really kind of where a lot of your blues sound is from. If I was just to play this minor pentatonic and not tweak that, that's the minor third. That's with the tweak. All right. So it's possible, and there are two pitfalls that people fall into, because you've got a note that's in the chord here, and you got notes in the scale on either side of it. Right? And you can play those notes, but if you sit on those notes for a long time, especially the 4, I'll start with just the 4. All right. That note doesn't like to be there because it's a half step away from the third. So here's, I'll put the 4 and the third together. That's the net effect of what's going on there. All right. If you're playing that and you resolve it, if you go down the half step, doing this on my phone is such a pain in the butt. All right, then it works. Or if you go down to the minor third. But if I just sit on that minor third against that, that's not very happy, right? Whereas suddenly it's happy if I give it that little bit of secret sauce right there. If I give it just that little tweak. Right? And a tweak, if we don't bend it in tune, you know, my joke about this stuff is that if you bend up to the major third in tune, it's country music. It's not blues anymore. Which is not entirely true, but it's... You know, that's a different sound. It's a different part of your toolbox. But, you know, as long as you're heading the direction of that major third, what is happening for you is that the ear hears the potential that it's in this chord, and it's cool. But if it sits there static like that, or if you're sitting on the 4, those notes are not very friendly to just sitting there. And that's the thing that you want to avoid when you're playing that minor pentatonic over the 1 chord. Right? Now, one of the things that the major pentatonic fixes is the fact that it's got that major third. Right? So I'm going to further make a mess of this, and in green, I guess, I'm going to overlay our major pentatonic over this chord in this key. And you're going to see that all of the chord tones except for the minor 7, this is horrible. Let me make another version of this down here. Right, so this is your major pentatonic in this spot, root. Those are the roots, and you got 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2. Okay, now if I just play that scale over this, it works, but it's actually not super bluesy. And then over the 4 chord, right, that's what that major third does over the 4 chord. And the reason for that is that we can take this D7 chord. All right, so that's the D, that's the 4 chord in this. 3, 5, minor 7, 3, 5, minor 7. And if we overlay the minor pentatonic, I'm just going to do this in dots here, you'll see that you get a lot of this, but most importantly in that little zone there, right, where that major third is, right there, that note right there, it fits in between. So it's got the opposite problem that we have when we're playing the minor pentatonic over the 1 chord. We're playing the minor pentatonic over the 4 chord. It actually fits because the minor third and the 4th of that pentatonic scale, the minor one, ends up being it's the minor 7 and the root. They're chord tones of the 4 chord. Right? So if we make those switches, and I'm going to do just the easiest way to do this, so I'm just going to play the third. There's the major third over the A chord. And here's the 4 chord. Right, we hit that change there. Back to the 1 chord. There's the 5 chord. And we resolve back to the 1 chord. Right, so this is kind of central. Okay, thank you, Charles. So this is kind of central to the idea that we need to be able to adapt what we're playing to the harmony there. Looks like my Apple Pencil's going to die here. All right, so you know, if we can kind of get used to shifting between the sounds over the chords, we can actually make this work. The easiest thing to do is to take those scale patterns, right, and move them back and forth as the chords change. But it's also very limiting. So that's one of the first things. The other thing you can do is learn where those scales are on top of each other. So you got minor pentatonic here, major pentatonic in the same position. All right, and if I play in the same position, then the lines are a little bit smoother. There's major pentatonic, and the minor. There's the major. And then resolve back to the major. Okay, so I'm going to pause just for a second. If you guys have questions, let me actually look in the chat here. So Terry, you're kind of hearing what we're talking about with the major and minor kind of fitting the chords a little bit better. I would imagine at this point. You kind of, looks like you asked this a little while ago. And a lot of this ends up being just the way things work, notes against chords, literally. All right. I've got like all the chord tone soloing stuff, those other lessons, right? And a lot of what that does is it helps us take this idea, all right, and kind of explore it a little bit more with a few more notes. But at the core of it, you know, a lot of the chord tone soloing stuff is, hey, we always approach the major third from a half step low, and that kind of alludes to that sound. I think in one of the bending lessons I talked about the minor third needing to kind of get tweaked towards the major third over that chord, and that helps. As always, if you're ending a phrase, that kind of locks in what it is. But you can play any of these sounds over any of these chords, and as long as you end up resolving it more towards what the chord is, you'll ultimately be all right. Right? Now, I had talked a little bit about taking... Let's use this. Here's the 2 and the 3 scale patterns earlier. Right? If you take that idea in A... Right, that gives us a really cool major thing that we can work with right now. All right, we have a little bit of the open. Actually, I'm going to erase some of the stuff here. Oops. All right, this will kind of give us a little bit of a movement. So 5. Oh, this is doing weird stuff. Not entirely certain. Oh. There's 5. There's 6. Root 2, 3. This is the major pentatonic scale in that physical pattern. 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6. Actually, I should be doing the root like that. Root. Okay, so I can pass through. So 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2, 3. Now, this part of it, I wouldn't be too worried about it. And if you're just learning this, having to incorporate the open strings might be a pain in the butt. But if you get used to this right here, 5, 6, root 2, 3, that part of this actually makes it really easy to play over this backing track, right? So and then minor. So when we talk about structuring phrases, you know, originally I was talking about starting a phrase in one octave and ending it in the next octave up or down in the same scale. And then I mentioned, hey, you know, we can take an idea in one scale and then maybe repeat it and play it a little bit differently to make it fit the next scale. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple of these ideas in a couple different places, just so you kind of see what I'm talking about. All right, so that's the major, and then I'm going to go up 3 frets. That works there. We're just gonna stay on minor pentatonic for the 5 and the 4 chord. And then we'll do the same thing. And then up 3 frets for the 4 chord. And then back into the major pentatonic. Same idea, just on different string set. Okay. So that, like right there, instead of playing, here's 5, 6. Let me give you one of these. It'll be good. There we go. So I was playing 5, 6, root, 2, and 3 right there for the major. And then when I moved it up 3 frets, right, you've got minor 7, root, minor 3, 4. So I use that for the 4 chord, and then come back down here for the 5, or for the 1. But that same pattern is actually here for the BB King box. It's funny because I always sing. I think of that also as a BB King box, and I'll show you why in a second. Especially if you guys have worked on my Sweet Little Angel solo, you'll see that. Right. So in this position, we got 5, 6, root, 2. So it's the same as what we did there or there. Right, and then the same pattern where it's kind of offset a little bit, minor 7, root, minor 3rd, 4. That's the minor sound. You just got to make sure that you're resolving to that root right there. Major, and there's the root for the major is the A. And then there's the minor one. Does that make sense, guys? We're just taking a phrase and just moving it up 3 frets, and you're making that major to minor transition. But you always have to be aware of where the root is within that pattern or that group of notes in order for you to resolve it properly. You can't just play the same lick twice, because then it's not going to resolve to the chord or the harmony that you're playing over. Okay. So let me hit some of these comments here. More traditional blues tends to stay more on the major side of things. All right. Well, that works to a certain extent. What is... Okay. So that's that conversation. So when I said, hey, let's talk about that Sweet Little Angel solo, because a lot of what we're doing here, actually, you know what, before I do that, we've been talking about these things as they replicate all over the fretboard. All right, so 5, 6, root, 2 for the major pentatonic. It's also here. We're still in A, but that's the 5, 6, root, 2 in that position. There's the 3. And then, you know, what's neat is you can either take that and move it up here, the same physical pattern, or major, and then there's the minor right there. So I'm gonna play around with that idea for a second, let you see what I do. Minor pentatonic. Now play the 2. right there, I've actually gone so far up the fretboard that now I'm back in the pattern that I started down here, right? Because 12 frets higher, everything repeats. It's an octave higher, right? So this is part of this, is that as you start learning this stuff relative to chord shapes that you know on the fretboard, relative to other licks that you know, and you start identifying the notes in those licks, you start having a little bit more power to move things around and play all over the fretboard. A lot of the stuff that I play, I bet you anything, if we sat down and analyzed like me improvising, you probably have like 5 basic ideas or 6 basic ideas, and it's literally just how I'm reusing them all over the fretboard that makes it interesting. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of playing for a second, and I'm going to try and hit a few of these things really specifically all over the fretboard. But I'll probably take like 3 choruses, and I'll kind of take a few different approaches. So here we go. So it's funny that this should come up right as I played a finger flub. No note is a bad note until you stop playing. This, I've probably said this about 4 times an hour for like the last 3 live streams. If you make a mistake, pass through it quickly and keep playing, and it's not really that big of a deal. If you make a mistake and you stop there and you make that oh shit look, then we know you made a mistake. But it also kind of finalizes your line, right? Or, you know, if you play something weird, play it again a second time, but then fix the note. So say I actually did a couple of these while I was just playing. So what I did was I played, you know, a couple notes not in the scale, and then the second time I fixed it, or I might have repeated it a couple times and then resolved it. And then it might have been weird, but it actually had the sound of your intention in it. I think that's the thing. You know, last week I said, you know, my teacher always said that, you know, your line has to have its own inherent logic, and then you can play whatever you want. All right, and I was using that in reference to playing really outside sounds, you know, because even over this I can play all right, I can, I just played basically a bunch of other chords. And then I resolved it back into key, and it was okay, right? But if I just stopped on one of those things that wasn't resolved, now I just play those notes, it's like no good, right? Right. Not so good. Same idea, but I went up and then back down. Alright. So anything weird that you play can be made okay. It's really just a matter of keeping your head on and listening to what you're playing and making sure that you're kind of continuing your line or your phrase, and then bringing it to the place where everything gets resolved and you make it okay. All right. So that's basically it. I hope that explains it okay. But to me, the idea is always, it's not wrong until you stop. As soon as you stop, it's like like musical chairs. You're just hosed. You're out of the game. So I do a lot of stuff. I love playing all this kind of country stuff. Over the blues to make longer lines, just because I like that sound. That's part of what I do. And a lot of that, like, right, that's literally a bluegrass, like a Doc Watson kind of, where I'm playing the major pentatonic. I'm going root, 2, minor 3, 3, 5, 6, 5 root. It's like that kind of lick, but I'll use it in multiple octaves. I could, even if I want to, right, take it here, right, and then just take it in the next octave higher in the same position. Root, 2, minor 3, 3, 5, 6, root. All right, you play it up and down, but that's, that. Yeah, that's kind of a nice little pathway through these sounds. And then when you get back to the 4 chord, all right, yeah, I can go back and forth, and that just kind of works for me. You always have to find, like, or figure out what the best way to get these things under your fingers is. And for me, getting away from this idea that we literally just move a scale shape up and down 3 frets is really important to making this musical. All right, it's important to recognize that, and it's kind of a cool device to use sometimes. You have to develop phrase, but you can't let that be the whole of your ability to play these sounds, right? Okay. So I'm going to pause just for a second, let you guys ask questions. On the pedal board equipment front, I actually decided, instead of destroying any more bulk cable, because I've got everything I need except for the audio cables, I got a friend on the forum to agree to do all of my soldering for me, which is, for whatever reason, like I'm really, like, I can swap pickups in all day long. I don't have a problem soldering, but for whatever reason, using that Mogami, the 2319 cable, the smaller cable with the square ends, they're all smaller, and it's really nice stuff, but it's a little bit too delicate for me. I'm kind of a meathead when it comes to this stuff, and I kept having problems. And my friend Randy is really good at this stuff. He uses it all the time, apparently. So we worked out a deal where he's gonna do that and ship it all back to me. And then hopefully by probably 2 weeks from now, I bet you I'll have them back, hopefully. And then I can actually start programming sounds and getting things ready, and they'll have a fun video on like all the stuff I've bought that you guys haven't heard, which I'm really looking forward to using. In the meantime, actually, I'm just playing, you know, my Emerson M drive in El Capistan, and that's actually making a happy sound for me. So. Okay. Other questions? I'm, you know, for me, you know, I take almost a country approach to this, a little bit more that way than the bluesy thing. I was originally taught how to do this major and minor thing in a B.B. King kind of context, right? Where he would play something, you know, and I've got the Sweet Little Angel video lesson. I'm gonna put a couple of these links in here in the chat for you guys to check out later. Is that one of them? No, that is not one of them. Hang on a second. Blues guitar lessons. Here we go. Actually, let's just give you this link. Okay, so this is a playlist, and it's got 13 blues lessons, but the very first one is the intro to Sweet Little Angel, and it's in C sharp. Plays a major lick and then starts with a minor. Kind of major there. Alright, and he's mixing and matching those major and minor sounds a little closer. It's not as specific to the chord in that, right? So in this context in C sharp, actually I'll move this down into A because that's kind of where we're at. Oops. Alright, the first lick, what he does there is that's the 5-6 root, bend up to the major third, and then he just plays a chord there. And then the next part, because it's a slower blues and it's got a quick change where it goes to the 4 chord in the second bar. That's very minor pentatonic right there. That's that minor box. Bending up from the minor 7 up to the root, and then 5, 4, 3, root. And then he comes down here back to the major pentatonic. I think it's that. Where he's playing just the 2 and then the root, right? And so we're still over the 1 chord. And that's a really cool mixture of those two sounds. And then he takes our 2-3 scale pattern. There's 5, 6, root, 2, 3. All right, and then he repeats it twice, and then plays the 5. And then he goes, right, that's all minor pentatonic. All right, root 5, minor 7, 5, 4, root, 4, minor 3, 3. All right, and that's all I've got written in that solo. But then when it goes to the 4 chord in the 5th bar, right, that's all in that Albert King box here, right? Root, minor 3, 4, minor 7. And if I remember correctly, he ends it in the major pentatonic again there. All right, so check out that tune. If you go to that lesson for Sweet Little Angel, what you're gonna find is that there'll be links to the original recording of the solo that I transcribed that from, which is the Live at the Regal version of Sweet Little Angel, which is my favorite. That's in the key of C sharp minor. I just kind of went through it in the key of A, but that's another good approach. BB actually kind of he mixes and matches the major and minor sounds a little bit more completely, and that's a little bit closer to how I use them. All right. Ultimately, it comes down to like how specific you want these sounds or discrete you want them to be. And for me, I tend to have my major sound ends up being a lot of notes, and then the minor ends up being more minor pentatonic, right? All right, so I'll play all of this stuff that's relative to the chord tones, which also happens to have the major pentatonic in it. Right? So I've got that sound, just the straight major pentatonic. I've got, based off the chord tones, the chord tone soloing ideas that I've got the lesson for. And then I've also got more of like the chromatic passing tones, that kind of stuff too. And that ends up being my one chord. And then the 4 and the 5 chords end up being a little bit more of that minor pentatonic, a little simpler. Okay. Pedal settings, where I initially set the knobs. It's interesting because like I've got all these pedals and I usually figure out how I'm going to use them, but I'm not like as intelligent about these things as someone like Pete Thorne or Sean Tubbs or one of these demo guys. Honestly, like with overdrive and distortion pedals, I'll usually start everything. I always put everything like on 5, like halfway up, and then kind of adjust out from there. Also depends on the kind of device it is too, and how much of that sound that I want. I like effects, but I'm also not one of these people that likes having like 5 effects on at once. And part of my rebuild here with the pedal board is going to end up being where I'm kind of completing the sounds a little bit more reverb, delay, things like that. So it'll end up being a little bit crazier. It'll be a little bit of an exploration. So actually, you might end up getting some of that kind of content from me, just as a matter of me demonstrating the new pedal board and talking about those sounds. But I can definitely talk about that also during a live stream. Actually, I can set this up so we can talk, go through some pedals and kind of see how things work out too. It just depends on what kind of pedal it is and what sound you're going for. I generally tend to like my pedals to push the amp, like drive pedals, more than get all the distortion from them. So even though that's a clean sound, it's not super clean. Right. All right. I'm not a big like Boss DS1 fan or anything like that. But I do have pedals, like I've got the Sir Riot. Like sometimes you just need to have a huge amount of distortion, and I've got things for that as well. But the majority of the pedals I have tend to work with the amp, so I generally don't have the settings super cranked. Usually they're somewhere between 4 and 6 or 7 as far as like drive, and then how hard I want to push the amp with the level. Okay. Do you guys, I'm going to open up for questions. I've got a lesson to do after this for Mr. Terry. But if you guys have any last questions, let me know. Hopefully I explained stuff in a way that makes sense. What's funny is sitting here playing an AC/DC song. The solo for You Shook Me All Night Long, a lot of Angus Young stuff sounds kind of cool, and he's got the mixture of major and minor sounds. That's all minor pentatonic, and then still minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, and then he goes back to that's minor pentatonic, minor, major pentatonic, minor, major, right? So even in a rock solo like that, you can actually kind of get away with that. AC/DC being kind of a bluesy rock sound anyway, you're going to get more of that. Even like, let me think for a second. Oops, maybe not. That one's all minor pentatonic, I think. Okay, maybe not. That was a bad example. All right, folks. I am probably going to call it then, and then I'll get online with my private student. But like I said, if you guys have so a couple things. Please like and subscribe, all that happy stuff. I am actually let me check here real quick. I am like 3 users away from, or subscribers away from getting 1,000 subscribers. So if somebody wants to help me with that, that actually pushes me over the threshold for what I need to move to the next level on YouTube. So please subscribe. Please hit the like button and the bell notification thing so that when I do these live lessons, where typically it's Wednesday night and Saturday mornings, you'll get a notification that I'm coming on. Usually, I think it does one like 30 minutes ahead of time. It says, "Hey, Mark's going live." All right, and then please hit the like button on this video. All these things kind of help me out and build the channel. So, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the comments. There's the chat box. The chat box should be available after the lesson, but if not, you can always put them in the comments below. That actually I'd probably, to be honest with you, I'll see the stuff in the comments below because I'll get a notification if you leave a comment below, but that stuff's not available until I stop the broadcast. So if you have any other questions, put them in there and I will answer them for you, either there in the comments, or I might say, hey, this is really complicated. I'll do it in the next live thing for you. But there's that. So if you have any questions, let me know. If not, I will see you guys Wednesday or next Saturday. Thanks a lot for hanging out. Bye, guys.